question here is the other discussion point that we have, and which is actually related to talent. So now we have talked about company, competitive advantage, but then how the competitive. I mean, you talked about certain areas, specific areas in terms of how that competitive advantage can be retained or competitive alpha can be retained. But the key part of this alpha is the talent, right? So, and there's one quote that I'm recollecting, and that's from Jensen Huang. He said, "AI won't take your job," and because there are a lot of concerns which people have been talking, which have been sharing that if AI has been adopted, we'll lose jobs. In fact, some of the customers still talk about pick up that subject when some of the leaders in the customer organizations, because they feel that their immediate employees or would lose job if they are adopting AI. So his statement was, AI won't take your job. Someone using AI effectively might. So I take that one step further. Maybe it isn't just someone using AI. Maybe it's someone who takes ownership. So AI is making everyone more productive, as we talked about. But leaders are still standing out um, with those who bring clarity, who make decisions, who align stakeholders, who move things forward. So, maybe AI is reducing the value of routine work while increasing the premium on high agency. So, if I come back to you, Preeti, and if you think about the best talent or commercial leader you worked with, if AI can do some of the routine work like writing emails, syncing your CRM system of records, preparing presentations, analyze meetings, meeting notes. So, what is that this person still does exceptionally well and preferred by the leaders?
See, one thing AI cannot and should not be allowed to do is taking accountability. Accountability of any decision should be taken by a human being. That cannot be done, and unfortunately, many folks, pass it on to AI. Oh, AI gave me this, and that's what they present, without using the layer of their judgment and their decision making that sits on top of all the answers or the
Yeah.
suggestions or the reports or whatever presentations that AI makes. And I think there's a big difference between the two. While AI can make response times better, I think the decision time, will be very, very important in bringing the, two together, because decision time takes longer. And who makes that decision? The smartest person in the room. The guy who knows how to, and by guy, I mean, anyone who is smart enough to navigate the same set of skills that we keep saying: critical thinking, ability to navigate, and so on and so forth. I won't go into that. Everybody knows what a good talent requires. But with AI, that person's human potential multiplies manyfold. And there is a paradox in the statement, if you will see, that the CEOs and the investors, they are actually clapping at the best talent. But, we are asking a question whether AI will take away that. AI cannot take away that. The 4 points that I had mentioned in the beginning, those 4 points are still valid. Your
Yeah.
judgment, the contextualization, whether you're doing sales, whether you're doing, service or any other function in the organization, you have to have the ability to take calls smartly. You may have 10 answers. Anybody who uses AI will know that it gives you some 5, 6, 7 options. Which option to choose, or which set of options to choose, what kind of questions to ask. The prompt
Yeah.
itself is such a critical thing. I mean, only yesterday I came across a situation, and I'll give you that example. In an insurance world, a, a, a proposal comes with one proposition, and it's a slip kind of thing, which has all the data, and they say, we want you to reinsure this. Now, what happened was, the thought process behind that prompt was, let us just go ahead and configure it. So they used AI, and AI was able to read all the stuff and put it into the system, loaded it, very basic. Suddenly, the question that came up was, what if three opportunities come in the same mail? How will it pick up? It just garbled everything. So that
Correct.
point should have been considered at least 2 months ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
When it's nothing, no rocket science, but it's the thinking of the prompt person, that why will one entity talking to you or a partner, why would they only send one opportunity at a time? They might bundle 3 4 5 opportunities. Can you
Correct.
create a prompt design that can pick up all of it? But
Hmm.
because number one, the person was did not have context to the subject, it was passed out to the technology or the AI team, and the AI team did whatever they saw. So it was
Hmm.
more of an order taking exercise rather than ability to think through and be able to respond to that. So I think that's a direct example, very simple example, but there are
Yeah.
many more complex examples in running a business. And I'm taking this simplicity because I'm not getting into complexity of it all. But this happens all the time. And
No, that's a very relevant example. In fact, most of the organizations, I have seen, I'm working with or worked with, have faced similar kind of situations wherein they do not have clarity on the prompt, or they do not have clarity even on the workflows.
yes,
What should be. So if I have certain context, then what is next? So that's where AI is not able to execute in the way a high agency human can do. But yeah, good to have that context. And let me request the audience to share their questions. We have only 20 25 minutes left for this session, so do share your questions, and we'll ensure that I'll prioritize your questions or the questions that I have many questions as of now, but I would still prefer if the audience could share their questions, as we have a surprise gift for them. So, but let me come to so we talked about the company, Alpha. We also talked about the high agency talent. Now let me, talk about the commercial playbooks. And we especially when we are looking at the buyers, so how buyers perspective has been changing, and how these playbooks that we have um, are would that be still fit for purpose, or do we need to revisit those? So in fact, for many years, and you would agree with me that we have been, one idea that was all around B2B sales, which is educate the buyer. So, and most of the sales book, from Spin and Challenger to value selling and MEDDIC, were created when sellers knew more than buyers. So I'm not sure that's true anymore, but because today's buyers have already spoken to AI, they have, compared vendors, uh, they have read analyst reports, watched demos, so on and so forth. So perhaps the seller's role might be changing from educating buyers to helping buyers make sense of complexity, something of those lines. But let me have this question to Deepak. So Deepak, if buyers are already informed before the first meeting, what are sellers really selling today? And are we, the sales playbook that we had from yesteryears, do we need to revisit these sales playbooks?
Quite a lot there, Vish. I mean, we spoke about MEDDIC, Challenger, Spice. These are all, sales techniques, sales methodologies. I'm a Sanders certified person. Here's the reality. People throw these names out, right, in the hope that we're going to throw stones at them. And here's reality. It's like the 10 commandments. Life can be very simple. You live them on basic rules and principles, right? I can tell you right now, there's no technique is going to die just like that, right? Here's why. Because I think what's happening in this conversation is that we confuse a framework with a script. Script, this is what I've hated about selling, right, Fish? Scripting. Too much scripting will always kill you. And that's where the frameworks rise above that, right? A framework teaches you a methodology or a system, not a script. And what I want to tell people is as follows. Great sales methodologies have never been about following the exact same order of questions, right? They've actually been teaching you how to question, how to discover. It's always been about thinking. When did we, I mean, if you look at the novice salesperson, right, they're the ones following scripts, but a senior folk person would never follow script. He follows his gut, he follows his instinct. So for me, that is always been the way of thinking. That's what I've experienced, right? So now what AI is doing is that it's exposing that type of thinking and it's turning those frameworks into checklists. That's the danger. And I think this is a message I've been trying to explain to people. What you're now doing is whatever commercial judgment you have developed, you are now second guessing yourself because AI tells you in immense detail what they recommend, right?
Mm.
I these what we're trying to do with AI and what we're trying to do in sellers and with these frameworks, they're very different jobs. 20
Mm.
years ago, honestly, if you and I were selling, we walked into a room, you and I were expected to know more about our product than what the customer knew, right, Vish? It was our
Yeah.
job to educate them about our product, right? Now, today,
Yes.
everyone bashes features. I get that. And we want to talk about pain. But here's the fun part. AI has actually accelerated the customer's own understanding. They're most likely compared competitors. Most likely they've got some very powerful AI that has looked at analyst reports and they actually have questions for us which are very pointed.
Mm.
Instead of us showing them a 1 hour demo, maybe they only need to see a 15-minute demo that only covers 3 items in it, right? So
Mm.
the fun
Mm.
part here is that it's not about the information. The information is there. It's more about alignment. The future is going to be for a salesperson that can actually get that alignment. So an
Mm.
alignment typically comes as an example. In the good old days, we could predict what finance could ask. We could predict what procurement would
Mm.
ask, right? We sat with a legal person. We knew what they would ask. Today with AI, boundaries are bleeding, ladies and gentlemen. You will get a question from procurement which has nothing to do with procurement. You're going to get a
Mm.
question from IT which has nothing to do with IT because everyone is getting way too powerful from from my perspective, right? And there's a certain element of confidence in that. What needs to happen is discovery used to be owned by the salesperson. Wish
Mm.
we spoke about agency earlier, right?
Yeah.
Discovery is now not going to be only about pain. It's also going to be about what is the fundamental decision making system inside the customer, who influences whom, and how will consensus break down. We need to target that. And I can tell
Mm.
you right now, Vish, the same techniques that were very powerful 20 years ago are the ones that are needed again today. But their challenge now is different. There's an onslaught from AI. You really require people with heart and spirit to actually understand. AI is
Mm.
not a teacher. AI is just a sharpener of your own intelligence. To me, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but in the case of a salesperson, it stands for augmented intelligence. And when you
Mm.
understand that you are not the human in the loop, you are the human with AI in the loop, that's when selling people will preserve themselves. Now, to answer this very question, someone using AI will take your job. Let me put it to this way. The metaphor in my mind is, and I say this to salespeople, when you are already in a competitive field where your judgment is made upon your performance and where we already know that mathematically speaking, over time, the law of averages, law of large numbers tells us that 20% of the guys will make 80% of the number. Why do
Mm.
you think that AI is going to help everyone equally then? Think about it, right? The great equalizer, rising water rises all. Watch out for that. Number two,
Mm.
if you are in a field and you have to run to the other end and the field has got rocks, the salesperson that stops to put on his sport shoes and then run is going to win. And for me,
Mm.
AI is the sport shoes. He will actually sit down, put those shoes on while the rest have just started running because they believe that they need to do the motions. That's AI for you right there. And people tell me, Deepak, you sound like a pessimist. AI will not reduce jobs. AI will create new jobs. And my answer is as follows. In the last 10 years that I've been doing predictive analytics, most jobs that were created that were in demand for data analytics and stuff required some level of intelligence, some required some specialized training. But the
Mm.
jobs going away today to AI are not those specialized jobs, right? Yet. The good news about AI is that previously we used to cut the cake this way, right, Preeti? Now finally we're cutting the cake this way. And when we cut the cake this way, the very people that used to think that they're sitting at the top sacrosanct because they spent 8 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes thinking about a slide now have lost that ability. This thinking is done by a tool, and that thinking is done at a faster rate than what humans could have done. So
Yeah.
there will be I'm not saying it's apocalypse, right? Apocalypse, is that the right pronunciation? I'm not saying that. I don't want to be chicken little, the sky is falling. But I do want to warn people, if you're not adopting, not embracing, and not doing it in control, you do put yourself on the back foot. Absolutely. And that's the elephant in the room for me, Vish.
Thank you. Thanks, Deepak. So that's a very good point, and especially when we are, referring to the sales playbooks. So, as you said, sales playbooks are not, need to be revisited as you move forward because buyers' way of buying is also changing. The same